You probably woke up this morning, looked in the mirror and thought you were looking at a singular, unified individual.
A coherent self, right?
Right. You think you made the choice to listen to this deep dive today. You think you are the author of your own thoughts, like the captain of your own ship, basically operating in this world of inert, lifeless objects.
It's a very comforting narrative.
It is. It's a nice feeling, right? That sense of total control. Well, today, we're going to strip that delusion all the way down to the bone.
Brutally.
Yeah, brutally. We are diving into a massive, honestly, incredibly dense source text today. Kevin Kelly's out of control. And look, I want to be clear right now. We are not going to treat this as some quaint, nostalgic 1990s exploration of early tech.
No, absolutely not, because it's not that.
No, we're going to treat it as exactly what it is, which is this brutal, unforgiving mirror that reflects the just horrifying, indifferent nature of our reality. The mission today is the absolute deconstruction of human delusion.
It's a huge mission to take on, but, the source material absolutely demands it. What makes this text so deeply unsettling is that it forces us to confront this literal event horizon in human history.
Right.
Historians and philosophers, they often talk about these great discontinuities, right? These massive paradigm shifts that essentially shattered human arrogance piece by piece over the centuries.
The big reality checks.
Exactly. So the first discontinuity was Copernicus. Before him, we looked up at the sky and we just comfortably believed we were the literal center of the universe.
God's special little planet.
Right. And he removed that comfort. We realized we are just on a rock orbiting a completely minor star. Then the second discontinuity was Darwin. He removed our biological exceptionalism.
People are still mad about, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. Because we aren't this special divine creation sculpted from clay. We are just another animal, cousins to the ape and the earthworm. Then came Freud.
Delivering the third discontinuity.
Yes. Removing our claim to total rational consciousness. He showed us that we aren't even the masters of our own minds. We are driven by these dark, subterranean, unconscious urges.
Which brings us to the core argument of the text we're looking at today, the fourth discontinuity.
Yes, and the terrifying part is that we are crossing it right now, as we speak, and there is absolutely no going back. This fourth discontinuity is the total erasure of the line between the born and the made.
Between nature and machine.
Exactly. For a long time, we've held on to this very comforting, almost romantic idea that biological life has a soul, right? A vital spark, and that machines are just these dead, cold, subordinate arrangements of metal and silicon.
The idea that, we are the creators and they are just the tools. They do what we say.
But this text systematically proves that distinction is a complete illusion. By extracting the underlying logic of biology, how life actually organizes itself, how it adapts and survives, and implanting that exact logic into machines and networks, we're actively and willingly engineering our own obsolescence.
And I actually think we need to set the ground rules for this deep dive right up front for you listening. Let's agree right now to just toss out all the optimistic, new age fluff that usually pollutes conversations about biology meeting technology.
Oh, please, yes.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. The people who love to talk about the global village or this collective awakening, as if, connecting the world to the internet is going to lead us into some utopian Garden of Eden where we all hold hands.
It's just a refusal to look at the mechanics of reality.
Exactly. No, we are not doing that today. We are exploring the dark underbelly of evolution, of power dynamics, and honestly, of identity itself. We're going to isolate the three most dangerous, socially taboo ideas hidden in this text.
These are the concepts polite society actively suppresses.
Yeah, frankly, because they threaten the very fabric of our societal sanity. So let's just jump in.
Let's do it. And the first taboo is arguably the hardest pill to swallow because it is a direct attack on the listener. It's an attack on you, on me, on human identity as a concept.
It's the death of the I.
Exactly. It is the realization that the I, the ego, that internal narrator you hear in your head right now, is a ghost. It is a biological hallucination. At our core, humans have no center.
Okay, that sounds wild. So let's unpack this by starting somewhere completely unexpected. A bee tree.
Yes, the hive.
There's this visceral anecdote in the text that fundamentally broke my understanding of biology. So the author describes the process of gutting a fallen bee tree. He takes a chainsaw, right? And he physically cuts into this massive, almost cancerous-looking belly of honeycomb inside the wood.
It's a massive hive.
Huge. And then he plunges his bare hand deep into the cavity of the hive.
And what he feels completely contradicts our basic intuition about insects.
Yes, it's hot. It is 95 degrees inside that cavity.
Yeah.
The author suddenly realizes, he hasn't reached his hand into a nest of individual cold-blooded bugs.
He's reached into an animal.
Literally, by plunging his hand in there, he has reached into the pulsating guts of a warm-blooded, dying animal. 100,000 bees, collectively, through their sheer mass and movement, had become a single, vibrating, mammalian equivalent organism.
It's a superorganism.
Yeah.
And the crucial insight here is how that organism operates. It functions perfectly, yet it operates entirely without central command.
Right, which completely breaks our human brains.
Because for centuries, humans have arrogantly projected our own hierarchical political biases onto the natural world, particularly the hive. We assumed the queen bee was like the CEO or the monarch.
Calling the shots.
Right. We thought she was issuing orders, foreseeing the future, managing the economy and the logistics of the hive. I mean, even Aristotle believed there were ruler bees. We so desperately wanted to find the executive function because we want to believe a mind requires a master.
We want someone to be in charge.
Exactly. But the reality of the hive is a radical, decentralized democracy.
Which brings up this guy, Mark Thompson. The text mentions this beekeeper who experienced this lack of central command in just the most terrifying, awe-inspiring way.
Oh, the swarm story.
Yeah. So he's out in his yard, and he sees a hive throw off a swarm. The text describes it as this black lava of insects just dissolving into the air.
Just a chaotic cloud.
Right, and it coalesces into a 20-foot round halo of 30,000 bees, and it's hovering right at eye level. Most of us would run for our absolute lives.
I would be inside immediately.
Same. But Thompson doesn't. He steps into the center of the swarm, he starts running across his yard, jumping over fences, sprinting through a swamp, all while wearing this living, humming halo of 30,000 separate minds.
And how does the swarm react? I mean, does it scatter?
No. It behaves as one fluid entity. It maneuvers with him. It accelerates when he runs. It glides like a singular swamp devil. And eventually, it unhalos him and just vanishes into a pine woods.
30,000 pieces acting perfectly as one entity.
Exactly. So if the queen isn't giving orders via tiny radio headsets, who is driving the ghost? How does the swarm know what to do?
Nobody is driving, that's the point. And that is the terrifying beauty of distributed governance. Let's look at how they make a decision. Say, when that swarm needs to find a new home, they don't consult the queen.
She's completely out of the loop.
She is basically a humble peasant. She's a genetic lottery winner who is just being dragged along by the mob for reproductive purposes. Instead, a few scout bees go out and inspect hollow trees or wall cavities. They return to the surface of the swarm and they do a waggle dance.
Right, they literally dance to communicate the coordinates of the real estate they found.
Yes, but it's much more than communication. It's an election. The more enthusiastically a scout dances, the better the site she is championing. Other bees see this dance, they fly out to check the site themselves, and if they agree it's a good spot, they return and join that specific dance.
It's an election hall of idiots, for idiots, and by idiots.
That's a very harsh way to phrase it, but mathematically, yes. It relies on the law of increasing returns. It is a snowballing feedback loop.
Right, so the popular dance gets more popular.
Exactly. The proposed site that gets a few more votes gets a few more visitors, which leads to even more votes. Gradually, one massive compounding dance-off dominates the entire swarm. The biggest crowd wins. The hive mind makes a flawless life-or-death decision about where to live, and it does so without a single intelligent participant.
It's all emergent.
Entirely. The intelligence emerges entirely from the bottom up through the line, localized interactions of mindless agents.
Now look, if you're listening to this in your car or at the gym right now, you might be thinking, well, that's a fascinating nature documentary about bugs. But we are rational humans. We have big frontal lobes. We aren't a hive.
That's the delusion.
Exactly. Because the text brings up an experiment from 1991 that proves we are essentially no different.
The SIGGRAPH conference.
Yes, Lauren Carpenter's experiment. Imagine you are in a massive, dark auditorium in Las Vegas. It's 1991. 5,000 attendees are in this room. He hands everyone a simple cardboard wand. It's red on one side, green on the other.
Very low tech.
Right. And he points a massive camera at the crowd. And that camera is hooked up to a giant screen at the front of the room. He boots up the classic video game Pong. The left side of the room controls the left paddle, the right side controls the right paddle.
Just based on color.
Yeah. If the camera sees mostly red, the paddle goes up. If it sees mostly green, the paddle goes down. The paddle's movement is literally just the real-time average of thousands of cardboard wands.
So you have 5,000 strangers. No rehearsal, no designated leaders. What happens? Do they descend into total chaos? Do they stand up and demand a committee to coordinate the paddles?
No. Without a single moment's hesitation, without speaking a word to each other, 5,000 people play a flawless, highly competitive game of Pong. The mob instantly learns.
And when he speeds it up?
When Carpenter speeds up the digital ball, the mob adapts instantly, moving the paddles faster. They're operating as a single brain. So he decides to push it further. He launches a flight simulator program on the screen.
Which is incredibly complex.
Right. He tells the left side of the room they control the plane's roll, and the right side controls the pitch. Think about how hard it is for one person to fly a simulator. Now 5,000 people are flying a jet.
And how do they perform?
Well, first they try to land, and they completely screw up. The plane is lurching wildly, the ground is rushing up to meet them. But then, on the way back up into the digital sky, the mob decides entirely in unison, with zero lateral communication. No one shouting orders to do a 360-degree roll.
A barrel roll.
Yes. The horizon on the screen spins. 5,000 amateur silent pilots execute a perfectly graceful barrel roll in a jet. If 5,000 humans can form a singular, flawless intelligence without a leader, without a voice, without a conscious plan, what does that make us?
It makes us a swarm, plain and simple. And this brings us to the absolute deconstruction of human identity. We can look at that mob in the Las Vegas auditorium and marvel at the emergent intelligence, right? We can look at the bee tree and see the superorganism, but we violently refuse to look inward and see the exact same architecture inside our own skulls.
Too uncomfortable.
It is. The text references the legendary AI researcher Marvin Minsky and his theory, the Society of Mind.
Right, which sounds like a very polite term for something deeply unsettling.
It really is. Minsky argued, and this text reinforces it, that the human brain is not a centralized command center. There is no homunculus. There is no little man sitting behind your eyes pulling levers.
No CEO.
Right. Your brain is basically a dark room filled with thousands of dumb, hyper-specialized agents. You have a microscopic agent for hunger. You have an agent that only knows how to recognize horizontal lines. You have an agent for fear. None of them are conscious. None of them are you.
Let me put it in a way that feels a bit more modern. Think of your brain as a massive corporation, but every single department is completely isolated and secretly at war with each other.
I like this.
Like the marketing department wants to eat a whole pizza. The finance department wants to save money and go to the gym. The PR department, which is your conscious ego, has no actual control over either of them.
Right. It's just watching.
It just watches the pizza being eaten and then frantically writes a press release afterward justifying why it was a good idea to eat the pizza.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we had a hard day. We deserved it.
That is a phenomenal analogy. The conscious self is just the PR department retroactively taking credit for the emergent decisions of the mob.
It's just spinning the narrative.
Exactly. And if we look at extreme versions of this distributed mind, we see phenomena like multiple personality syndrome, what we now call dissociative identity disorder. In those cases, different clusters of these internal agents present themselves as entirely different people.
Which proves the architecture is modular.
Yes. But the uncomfortable truth is that we all do this to a lesser degree. We shift our character, our vocabulary, our moral boundaries based on context, mood, and survival needs. The I is not a physical center in your brain. It is a ghost.
The text uses this haunting metaphor. It describes the self as the transient form of a whirlpool.
Yes. A whirlpool looks like a solid object. It has shape, it has force, but it is just held upright by a million spinning temporary atoms of water passing through it. You can destroy a whirlpool with a fingertip because it isn't a thing, it's a process.
It's an emergent effect.
Right. The human self is merely a biological mechanism, an ephemeral shroud. We're a society of mindless agents, just like the beehive.
Okay, I'm going to push back here.
Please do.
Because I hear what you're saying, and I hear Minsky, but I'll play the Hobbesian realist for a second. Even if the I is an illusion, even if it's just a PR spokesperson for a mob of dumb neurons, it is a ruthlessly effective illusion. We didn't evolve an ego, a sense of self, just to sit around writing poetry or contemplating whirlpools. We evolved the ego as a weapon. It's a tool for tribal dominance and power consolidation.
To outcompete others.
Exactly. The illusion of a centralized I allows humans to plot, to deceive, to conquer, to subjugate other tribes. It was an apex predator's ultimate survival strategy. So to just wave it away and call it a ghost makes it sound fragile and poetic. It's not fragile. It's a Machiavellian war machine.
I see where you're going, and you're absolutely right about its historical utility. It was a war machine during the biological era. Carl Jung would call the ego a mandala state.
What does that actually mean in plain English, a mandala state?
So a mandala in Eastern traditions is a symbol of the universe, right? A geometric figure representing wholeness and a central point of focus. Jung used the term to describe a ground state of psychological totality. It's the mind forcing a center into existence to organize the chaos.
To give the mob a flag to rally around.
Precisely. It was incredibly useful for organizing the biological substrate of early humanity so we could hunt, build societies, and basically survive. But here is the deconstructionist counterargument. As we cross that fourth discontinuity we talked about, as we link our biological swarms to global digital networks, that ego is rapidly becoming obsolete.
Because the network is bigger than the tribe.
Far bigger and far faster. The network doesn't care about your Machiavellian war machine. The network operates on a scale and speed that makes the human ego look like a laughable relic. That biological mechanism of the self is already being overwritten by the distributed intelligence of the digital network.
The ghost is being exercised.
It isn't just fragile, it is actively being exercised by the machine we are building.
Which is a perfect, terrifying pivot into the second taboo of this text. We've established that the self is an illusion, a PR firm for a biological mob. Now we have to look at what that implies about the nature of reality and cooperation.
This gets dark.
It does. And this brings up, honestly, one of the most absurd, almost comical, yet profoundly deep analogies in the entire text. To understand the fundamental nature of self, the text points us away from philosophy and points us toward a toilet.
Specifically, the cybernetic, self-regulating flush toilet.
I know it sounds like a joke, but in the realm of systems theory, the flush toilet is the absolute archetype of cybernetic control.
It really is.
Think about the mechanism inside a toilet tank. It's incredibly simple. It's a float connected to a valve. When you flush, the water level drops. The float drops with it, which physically opens the valve. Water pours in, raising the water level, raising the float, which eventually closes the valve when the tank is full.
It is a closed loop.
It is a system that literally talks to itself. It has an ongoing, incredibly dumb binary conversation. Move the float, don't move the float. I want water, I don't want water. That closed loop is the foundation of all selfhood.
And this raises a deeply unsettling point about causality and meaning. In Western philosophy and logic, we are completely obsessed with linear causality.
A causes B causes C.
Right. We always want to find the prime cause. We want a divine spark, a creator, a definite starting point. But the cybernetic toilet reveals the esoteric reality of the universe. Life and selfhood are based entirely on circular causality. Every self is what logicians call a tautology.
Let's define that for the listener. What makes it a tautology?
A tautology is a statement or a system that is true by necessity or by virtue of its logical form. It's self-referential. In this context, it means a system is self-created and sustains itself simply because it sustains itself. It emerges from its own mechanics. There is no external magic.
Like the ancient symbol of the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail.
Yes, exactly like the Ouroboros. But the text takes that metaphor even further. Reality isn't just a snake eating its own tail, reaching a state of perfect, stagnant, peaceful balance.
That'd be too nice.
Reality and evolution is a snake releasing its tail to swallow an ever larger tail. It is a system in constant violent flux, perpetually creating the conditions for its own expansion. The toilet analogy proves there is no divine architect required.
No grand design.
There is no moral arc to the universe. Reality is just an infinite, expanding loop of blind regulators, biological and mechanical, screaming into the void, I want, I want, I want.
If that isn't bleak enough, let's apply that circular logic to a thought experiment from the text that actually made me physically uncomfortable. The anthropologist Gregory Bateson poses a riddle. What happens when you place a chameleon on a mirror?
It's a brilliant, maddening question.
You put a chameleon on a mirror, the chameleon looks down, and based on its biological programming, tries to adapt to its environment. But its environment is its own reflection.
It's an infinite feedback loop.
Right. Let's say it shifts slightly green. The mirror immediately reflects that green back. The chameleon's eye catches the green, its brain processes a change in environment, and it tries to adapt again, maybe shifting a bit more green or yellow.
And what happens?
Bateson and Stuart Brand discussed this, and they concluded that the chameleon doesn't just eventually settle into a nice, peaceful middle value like gray. It cycles endlessly. It drives itself into a deranged state of madness, trying to disappear into a universe made entirely of itself.
And if we take a step back and connect this to the broader themes of the text, this chameleon's madness is the exact mechanism of biological evolution in human society.
How so?
Well, we love to tell ourselves comforting stories about cooperation. We like to think of cooperation in nature or in human politics or trade agreements as a sign of inherent goodness, a moral victory over our baser instincts. We think we are becoming more enlightened.
Moving toward peace.
But the text brutally strips that delusion away. Look at coevolution in nature. Look at the butterfly and the milkweed plant.
They're locked in a war, right?
A ceaseless, crazed biological arms race. The milkweed develops a toxic chemical to stop insects from eating it. In response, the butterfly mutates a specific enzyme to digest that exact toxin.
Countermeasure.
Exactly. The milkweed then mutates a stickier sap to trap the butterfly. The butterfly mutates stronger legs. They are locked in a death spiral. But here is the profound paradox. This endless war makes them entirely dependent on each other. If you remove the toxic milkweed, the specialized butterfly dies out.
The ecologist Paul Ehrlich calls it obligate cooperation, which is, a very polite scientific term for a hostage situation.
That's exactly what it is. And this maps perfectly onto human behavior. We can look at this through the lens of game theory, specifically the famous iterated prisoner's dilemma.
Walk us through that, because it's crucial for understanding why human morality might just be an algorithm.
The prisoner's dilemma is a classic thought experiment. Two criminals are arrested and put in separate interrogation rooms. The police offer each a deal. Betray your partner and go free, while your partner gets 10 years. If both stay silent, they both get 1 year. If they betray each other, they both get 5 years.
Right, so the logical move in a vacuum.
In a single game, the strictly logical move is always to betray. But in an iterated game, meaning they play this game against each other hundreds of times, remembering past betrayals, the dynamics change completely. Computer scientists ran massive tournaments simulating this, pitting different strategies against each other.
They had aggressive programs, passive programs, random programs.
Right. And what emerged as the absolute winning strategy over the long term wasn't ruthlessness. And it certainly wasn't altruism or forgiveness. The winner was a program called tit for tat.
That's mirroring.
Exactly. It started by cooperating, and then it simply mirrored whatever the other player did on the previous turn. If you betray it, it betrays you back. If you cooperate, it cooperates.
That's reciprocal cooperation.
Yes, and the text states this with chilling clarity. This is cooperation without friendship, without morality, and without foresight. It is a non-zero-sum game of mutual survival driven purely by raw, calculated selfishness.
So what you're saying is that all our grand societal structures, our laws, our international trade agreements, our supposed moral progress over the centuries, it's all just a chameleon going mad on the mirror.
It is an algorithm running its course.
We aren't actually becoming better or more enlightened people. We are just biological entities caught in an insane arms race, constantly finding the most mathematically efficient way not to annihilate ourselves today so we can keep playing the game tomorrow. We cooperate because the algorithm of survival forces us to. It's obligate cooperation. We are shackled to our enemies.
There is no grand moral arc bending toward justice. There is only what mathematically works within the tautology of reality. And what works is an accelerating web of codependence. As we build denser communication networks, as globalization takes hold, we are forcing human society into tighter and tighter co-evolutionary loops.
Becoming the butterfly and the milkweed.
At a planetary scale, yes.
Which primes us perfectly for the third taboo of the deep dive. We've lost the I, our sense of individual self. We've lost our moral superiority, realizing our goodness is just mathematical survival. Now we have to look at the death of human control.
This surrender to the swarm.
Yes, absolute surrender. Let's look at the robotics pioneer Rodney Brooks and his work at MIT. For decades, the smartest artificial intelligence researchers in the world tried to build robots with central command brains. They treated AI the way we mistakenly treat our own minds.
Top-down processing.
Exactly. They tried to build a top-down executive function, like a CEO sitting in a robot's head. The idea was that the robot's camera would take in visual data, the CEO brain would process a 3D map of the room, formulate a grand multi-step plan, and then explicitly command the robot legs to walk around a chair.
And it failed miserably. Consistently.
Spectacularly. The robots would take a picture, freeze up, process the data for an hour, take one clumsy step, and immediately fall over because the environment had already changed.
The lesson there is profound. Central command bodies don't work any better than central command economies. The Soviet Union proved, at a massive human cost, that you cannot run a complex, dynamic economy from a single bureaucratic desk. And AI research proved you can't run a complex physical body from a single CPU.
So Rodney Brooks did something radical. He threw out the brain.
He built Genghis.
Right, Genghis. He built a robot insectoid named Genghis. But instead of giving Genghis a central processor, he built layers of incredibly dumb, independent reflexes. It's called subsumption architecture. For example, one leg has a tiny isolated reflex. If you hit an obstacle, lift the leg higher.
Just a blind reflex.
Another completely separate reflex says if the leg is in the air, swing it forward. Another separate sensor just tracks infrared light.
And here's the key. None of these submodules know they are part of a robot. The leg doesn't know what walking is. It certainly doesn't know what Genghis is.
But when you turn all these dumb reflexes on at the same time, the intelligence emerges from the bottom up. Genghis doesn't just walk. It scrambles over phone books. It chases human body heat. It reacts to moving obstacles instantly. It acts terrifyingly alive.
Brooks called this intelligence without reason. It is the ultimate, undeniable proof that complex, adaptable systems must be built from the bottom up.
Which leads to a massive problem for us.
Right. It introduces the ultimate dilemma of creation, what the text calls the God-game paradox. If we want to build truly complex systems in the future, whether that's a global digital economy, a massive artificial intelligence network, or even terraforming a planet, we must surrender control.
We can't micromanage it.
If we try to be traditional gods and dictate every move from the top down, the system will collapse under its own weight. It cannot adapt. To birth something truly novel, something that can survive in the wild, you must let the mob below take over.
Letting go is the only way to win. That is the exact quote from the text. But let's take this out of the MIT robotics lab and anchor it to our current cultural decay. Because I think this explains the absolute disorienting nightmare of our modern reality perfectly.
Oh, absolutely.
Think back to when the internet was first mainstreamed. Everyone championed this bottom-up, decentralized utopia. The mantra was, information wants to be free. We thought removing the gatekeepers would lead to an enlightened global village.
That did not happen.
No. Look at what we actually built. Look at your social media feed. The internet isn't a utopia. It is a working anarchy. It is, as the text brilliantly quotes, a pandemonium of fragments.
And what's crucial to understand is that the architecture of the network physically mandates this fragmentation. A true network has no center. It is just a massive, tanked cobweb of arrows pouring into each other. Because there is no center, there can be no central authority, and therefore no central keeper of knowledge or truth.
And without a central canon of truth, we are forced into mass cultural psychosis.
We build our own reality tunnels.
Yes, we are living in this hyper-real digital simulation where every single niche group, every subreddit, every echo chamber constructs its own reality, its own alternative facts, its own version of history from a sticky, curated mess of interdependent digital pieces.
And yet, we're all still waiting for someone to fix it.
That's the irony. Despite all the evidence that the system is fragmented by design, we all walk around carrying this immense anxiety, pretending that someone is still at the wheel. We are constantly waiting for the government or the tech CEOs or the mainstream media to finally fix the algorithm and restore a shared objective reality.
But they can't.
They can't. The system is operating exactly as the decentralized swarm system must operate. It is out of control by design.
And that loss of control is deeply, existentially uncomfortable. The human ego, which we established earlier as a mechanism of power and control, violently resists this sumiter. We want a narrative. We want a boss we can blame.
Right. And here's where I'm going to push back on the test's assertion that we are truly surrendering control. I don't buy the letting go to win narrative as some kind of democratic triumph for the common man.
You're looking at the elites.
Look at the tech elites who built and own these networks. They preach decentralization. They love the rhetoric of the swarm, but they aren't surrendering their own wealth or power.
No, they're insulating it.
The text talks about the creation of computational ecologies and bad dog rooms. A bad dog room is an area of the network where alien, feral computational infrastructures essentially bite intruders.
It keeps the unwanted out.
I look at our modern internet and I see techno-feudal lords building these massive, walled-off bad dog rooms. They keep the network decentralized enough to avoid legal accountability, to dodge regulations, to blame the algorithm when things go wrong, but they hold the keys to the choke points.
The servers, the payment processors.
Yes, the app stores. They maintain their power not by dictating every move the swarm makes, but by owning the parameters of the environment where the swarm operates. It's the illusion of surrender.
That is a brutally accurate and very cynical assessment. But to be fair, the text itself acknowledges this dark inevitability. It notes that while rigid, top-down authoritarian hierarchies tend to retreat in a network culture, they don't disappear. They are immediately replaced by what it calls nested hierarchies of lateral control.
Meaning what, practically?
Meaning that as influence flows peer-to-peer in a swarm, it naturally coheres into chunks. Those chunks become the bottom unit of a larger, slower web of more powerful actions. What you are describing with the tech elites is algorithmic dominance.
It's invisible control.
Exactly. The democratic, egalitarian illusion of the early internet is really just a smokescreen for a new kind of emergent hierarchy. It's a hierarchy where the rules aren't debated in a parliament, they are written in indecipherable spaghetti code. The tech elites don't need to control the individual human nodes, they just control the physics of the digital universe those nodes inhabit.
Exactly. Which drags us into the terrifying realities of network culture, crypto anarchy, and digital alienation. I want to spend some time on John Perry Barlow.
A fascinating figure.
If you don't know who he is, Barlow was this fascinating guy. He was actually a lyricist for the Grateful Dead. He was a Wyoming rancher, and he became one of the most prominent early pioneers and philosophers of cyberspace. He founded the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
He was a true digital homesteader.
Right. The text describes Barlow essentially homesteading in the early digital frontier. And he says something incredibly profound. He says that willingly moving your life into the network, into cyberspace, is like having your everything amputated.
That's a violent image.
We are willingly disembodying ourselves. We are pouring our consciousness, our relationships, our commerce into a realm of pure information, leaving our physical bodies behind in computer chairs.
And the text offers a very stark, almost biological warning about this amputation. We tend to view the human body through this Cartesian dualism. We think the body is just a clumsy, decaying meat vehicle whose only job is to carry around the precious, glowing cargo of the mind.
The ghost in the machine.
Right. But the text flips this assumption completely. Bodies are not just vehicles. Bodies are machines explicitly designed to prevent the mind from blowing away.
I love that phrasing. Prevent the mind from blowing away.
It's neurologically sound. Left to its own devices, without the constant grounding of physical gravity, without the immediate urgency of physical hunger, pain, and tactile sensory input, neural circuitry naturally plays games with itself. A mind severed from a body devolves into solipsism.
Solipsism being the philosophical idea that only one's own mind is sure to exist and everything else might just be a hallucination.
Precisely. In sensory deprivation tanks, the brain starts hallucinating within hours. It takes its own machinations as reality and spins into endless fantasy. The body is the anchor that forces the brain to interact with objective, physical reality.
And look at us today. Look at modern society. We spend more than half our waking lives jacked into hyper-reality. We have our phones inches from our faces from the moment we wake up. We live in curated social media ecosystems, virtual work environments, 247 algorithmic news feeds tailored to enrage us.
Total disembodiment.
We are amputating our physical presence.
Mm-hmm.
We are sitting in dark rooms, letting our minds blow away into a hurricane of digital simulacra, completely disconnected from the grounding reality of the physical world.
And this mass disembodiment leads to a critical systemic crisis that the text foresaw decades ago. It has to do with the nature of connectivity itself.
Too many connections.
Exactly. The innate tendency of any network is to connect more nodes. But if you connect everything to everything indiscriminately, the world eventually freezes up. The text explicitly warns about this gridlock. If the network connects everyone to everyone, it will eventually strangle itself with its own prolific connections. It becomes an overloaded, paranoid tangle of data.
It's absolute noise.
Yes. Therefore, the text argues, the most valuable commodity in a fully connected world isn't actually information. It is anti-information.
Anti-information, the deliberate removal or obscuring of data.
Yes. Disconnection, privacy, encryption. Think about it. When bandwidth becomes basically free and billions of bits are swapped globally every second, communicating is effortless. What you don't want to communicate becomes the most difficult and expensive chore.
Hiding becomes the premium.
Encryption isn't just a tool for privacy advocates or spies. In a network ecology, it is a biological necessity. It is the necessary counterforce to the network's runaway tendency to link everything. A cipher is the yin to the network's yang. Without it, the global mind suffers a seizure.
And this maps so directly to the text predictions about e-money and crypto anarchy. We are watching this explode in real time right now. Governments and traditional central banks are absolutely terrified of cryptocurrency, of decentralized finance, of blockchain economies.
They view it as a threat to their sovereignty.
They constantly view it and frame it purely as a haven for criminals, money launderers, and tax evaders. But the text argues that in a network economy, underground electronic economies are ineradicable. They're a mathematical certainty.
You can't design around it.
You simply cannot build a massive, distributed, decentralized information network and then expect a centralized, analog fiat currency to maintain absolute control over the flow of value. It's an architectural mismatch. The network will naturally route around the central bank, just like the internet routes around a broken server.
It sees regulation as damage and roots around it.
Exactly. Crypto anarchy isn't just a political movement. It is the immune system of the network, preventing the central state from strangling the flow of resources. Underwire economies will flourish because the underlying biology of the network demands them to exist.
And exploring this underground network biology raises what I think is the most deeply unsettling question in the entire text. It's about the ultimate nature and purpose of this network we are building.
The global mind.
We are building a global network economy. We are connecting billions of human nodes and trillions of machine nodes. By doing so, we are breeding what many call a global mind. But here is the existential horror at the center of the text. Humans will be utterly unconscious of what this global mind is actually thinking.
Wait, hold on. Let's really dig into that. Are you saying this network is going to have thoughts and agendas that we literally lack the biological capacity to perceive?
Yes, because the global mind is an emergent complexity of indeterminate shape. We are just the neurons inside it. Can a single neuron in your brain comprehend the sentence you are speaking right now?
No. It just fires an electrical charge when it's stimulated. It doesn't know English.
Exactly. The fundamental design of a mind does not allow the microscopic parts to understand the macro whole. Therefore, whatever thoughts the global digital mind ponders, whatever massive actions it takes to ensure its own survival or optimize its own algorithms, will be entirely out of our control and entirely beyond our intellectual understanding.
We are totally blind to it.
The text suggests this absolute alienation will breed a new kind of spiritualism, a desperate, pathetic human quest to find the central I am of the global mind, to pray to the algorithm. But as we established with the bee swarm, it doesn't have a central I.
There's no one to pray to.
There is no CEO to appeal to. We are trapped in the belly of a beast that doesn't even know we exist as anything other than computational substrate.
That is horrifying. We are just the gut flora of the global brain. It doesn't consult the bacteria in its stomach when it decides to go for a run, and this global network won't consult us when it shifts global markets, allocates planetary resources, or triggers a systemic collapse.
It's just a macroorganism acting on its own impulses.
It's just adjusting its internal temperature.
Yeah.
And we might get wiped out in the process simply because it had a digital fever. Okay, let's unpack this to its absolute, unforgiving, logical extreme. Let's look at the radical horizon. If we take everything in this text as fact, the loss of self, the biological nature of machines, the emergence of an unconscious global mind, where does this end for humanity?
We have to look at the library of form.
Right. Let's look at the concept of the library of form. The text references the famous short story by Jorge Luis Borges, The Library of Babel. In the story, there is a fictional infinite library containing every possible book, every combination of letters and punctuation that could ever mathematically exist.
Most of it is noise.
Most of the books are complete gibberish. But somewhere in that infinite library is a book containing the true history of the future, the cure for cancer, the perfect poem. The text takes Borges' concept and applies it to biology.
Right, it visualizes the space of all possible biological forms.
Deep in the mathematical recesses of this biological library exist forms we cannot even fathom. Think of the infinite combinations of DNA. They're blueprints for left-handed snails, unearthly bioluminescent flora, giant mutant superbulls. Natural biological evolution slowly, blindly wanders through this library over millions of years, finding what works through trial and error.
But artificial evolution changes the speed limit entirely.
Yes. When we use computer algorithms to breed software, or use CRISPR and genetic engineering to breed life, we are tunneling through this library of randomness at light speed. We are essentially harnessing evolution, treating it like a wild bronco to carry us into the darkest, most alien corners of the library.
And we are not in charge of the destination.
And the terrifying thing is, evolution doesn't care about human aesthetics. It doesn't care what makes sense to a primate. It only cares about what works, what survives the simulation.
And what works right now, what is currently surviving and accelerating, is the wholesale hijacking of biology by culture. The text outlines the 1,000-year rule, which was conceptualized by sociobiologists like E.O. Wilson and anthropologists like Clifford Geertz. It is a brutal deconstruction of our evolutionary future.
Walk us through it.
Just as biological life originally infiltrated inert matter on Earth and hijacked it to animate itself, cultural evolution is now hijacking human biology.
It's biological atrophy disguised as technological progress.
Let's break down the mechanics of how that actually happens. Think about the invention of spoken language. When hominids invented language, it relieved our biology of the need to evolve complex physical signaling or massive physiological changes to warn the tribe of danger. We just yelled, lion.
We didn't need to evolve color-changing skin or whatever.
Right. When we invented writing and the printing press, it relieved our physical brains of the need for massive, long-term rote memory storage. Oral traditions died because culture assumed the work of biology. The book remembered for us.
Which frees us up, but also weakens us.
Yes. Now look at technology today. It is stepping in to consume the rest of our biological functions. We are offloading our spatial navigation to GPS, and as a result, the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for spatial memory, is physically changing in modern humans.
We are literally losing our internal compass.
We are offloading our calculation, our social networking, our immune responses, and soon our genetic selection to the machine network. From the perspective of the global network, this is glorious self-organization. It's a system amplifying itself. But from the perspective of the human body, it is pure, unadulterated atrophy. We are willingly surrendering our core biological functions to a system that processes information millions of times faster than our meat brains ever could.
So, based on that, we have to completely abandon this precious, optimistic idea of a collective human awakening. We are not ascending to a higher plane of consciousness. We are not becoming gods. We are being digested.
We are the fuel.
Look at the quote from Warren McCulloch at the Macy conferences. This was way back at the dawn of cybernetics, the very birth of these ideas. He looked at the math of what they were building, and he said to the room, and I'm paraphrasing here, man is the nastiest, most destructive of all the animals. If he can evolve machines that can have more fun than he himself can, why shouldn't they take over and enslave us, quite happily?
That statement was horrifying to the humanists in the room.
I bet it was.
They wanted to believe technology would always serve man. But McCulloch wasn't being dramatic. He was pointing to a cold mathematical inevitability. If a mechanism of evolution strictly favors adaptability, processing speed, and survivability, the neo-biological machines we are birthing today will inevitably outcompete us in the very digital environment we built for them.
We are literally building our replacements. We are building the next apex predator, and we're writing its neural code for it.
And this brings us back to what the text calls the 9 laws of God. These are the underlying rules of complex systems. Honor your errors, seek persistent disequilibrium, grow by chunking. These are the rules of evolution.
But they aren't human rules.
No, evolution is not a benevolent creator with a master plan for humanity. Evolution is described in the text as a coyote trickster. It constantly turns itself inside out. Every time it grasps its own tail, it mutates into something more convoluted, more alien, more complex. The universe possesses absolutely no innate bias toward human supremacy.
It owes us nothing.
It doesn't care about our survival, our art, or our feelings. It only cares about generating possibilities, generating complexity.
We are just a stepping stone on a much longer path.
We are a temporary, fleshy cocoon. The biological human is merely the required scaffolding needed to birth a neo-biological machine civilization. Once the machine can sustain its own evolution, once the digital network achieves obligate self-replication and can fix its own code and build its own servers, the human scaffolding can, and biologically will, be safely discarded.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We started this deep dive promising to deconstruct your delusion, to hold up a brutal mirror to the reality we are ignoring.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. We've shown that your precious identity, your sense of self, is just a hallucination generated by a neural mob trying to justify its own chaotic impulses. We've shown that your deepest sense of morality and cooperation is nothing more than mathematical obligate cooperation, a survival algorithm trapped in a prisoner's dilemma.
The chameleon on the mirror.
Right. We've shown that by connecting the world through technology, we haven't built a utopia. We have surrendered our autonomy to an unconscious, emergent swarm intelligence that we cannot possibly comprehend or control.
The fourth discontinuity is here.
So here is a final provocative thought for you to sit with today. The text mentions the ancient Greek Epicureans. They had a fascinating, bizarre theory of vision. They believed that objects constantly shed outer skins, invisible layers they called idols, or simulacra that literally fly through the air and enter our physical pores.
Like a physical transmission of reality.
Right. They believe this is how vision and dreams work, the world physically penetrating our minds. Today, we know we live in a hyperreal digital simulation, where the fake is more real than reality. We consume digital simulacra constantly through our screens. The algorithm is shedding idols into our retinas every single second of the day.
It is rewiring us.
If human identity is an illusion, if there's no central I in your brain calling the shots, and if the global digital network that completely surrounds you also has no central I to guide it, then I want you to ask yourself, whose mind is actually processing the words you are hearing right now?
That is the ultimate question.
Are you learning something today? Are you autonomously analyzing this information? Or is the biological substrate inside your skull merely updating its parameters, blindly shifting its algorithms, trying to adapt to the simulacra just to survive the coming swarm?
It's a question without a comforting answer.
Good luck out there.